This next stitch is called the cross or the catch stitch. It's most often used in hemming garments. So I'm going to practice my cross stitch on a pleat. So this is a pleat of the fabric. You can see that it's folded back on itself and it's pinned down in place. So I've pre-pleated this, ironed it in place, and also pinned it for myself. If there's too much give down here, which there is quite a lot, I can place more pins to keep it flat as well. And always I can remove the pins as I sew so that they are out of my way. So I pre-threaded my needle, tied my knot. I'm doing this in a single thread. I like to do hems, especially in delicate fabrics, in a single thread, but occasionally in heavier fabrics we will use a double thread. So just be aware of the type of fabric you might be hemming. But we're going to pretend that the single layer of fabric here is the skirt that I'm hemming, and then the fold is the hem that has been folded upward to finish the garment. So I'm going to start down here in the pleat part of my hem, and I am making a small backward stitch. So I'm going to be going across the fabric this way, forward, away from myself. However, my needle is always going to be pointing at me. So it's pointing the opposite direction that I'm actually stitching. So I make a very small little stitch there. Then I'm going to jump up diagonally into the single layer of fabric, and I'm also going to make a small stitch there. It's very important in the single layer of fabric, or what's going to show on the garment, to catch a very, very small amount of fabric. So that's only a few threads, you can see there. And I want to very gently pull until it's flat but not tight. If I make my hem too tight, then garments like suits and other soft fabrics can pull and pucker. So I want to make sure that that doesn't happen. Then I will jump back onto my pleat. I can make a slightly bigger stitch. I still keep it small, but slightly bigger than what I started with. Jump up into the single layer of fabric, make a very, very small stitch again. Just trying to grab a few fibers there. And if my thread color matches my fabric, it should be pretty invisible on the right side of the fabric. So this, what I'm showing you here, would be on the wrong side of the fabric, on the back side, the underneath side of the skirt or the pants or whatever I happen to be hemming. You can see it's called the cross stitch because it makes little crisscrosses as you move along. So again, you're trying to maintain consistency in the length of the stitch you take, how far it is away from the edge of your hem, and then the distance they are apart as well. Again, I'm pulling till it's flat, but I'm not pulling hard. I'm still being very gentle with this so that I'm not pulling or puckering my fabric. You can see that there. So on the back side, or the right side of the fabric, if this were the skirt or the pant, you can see that there are very, very small little stitches. Actually, that one is just a little bit big, but if it were the same color thread, it wouldn't be so bad. But you're trying to aim for almost invisible, if you were to stand away from it, little tiny stitches. Again, if it matched, it would blend in really great. If you've got a sturdy, flat fabric, this will really blend in nicely. Again, you have to be careful with the very soft fabrics because they can pucker easily. When I'm ready to tie my knot in my hem, and you want to make sure that every so often, you don't want to go more than a foot or so in a hem, especially a big skirt that you're tying a knot and then starting a new thread and beginning again. Because if somebody steps on this hem and begins to rip it out, it's better to rip out a small section of that hem rather than rip out a very long continuous length and then the whole hem is starting to come out. Much easier to repair if it's in sections, so be aware of that. But when I'm ready to knot this, I'm going to always want to knot it in the folded hem. I do not want to make a knot in this single layer of fabric or what would show on the outside, because that's going to definitely pucker. I pull flat and then I make another stitch. This is the tiny stitch that I will create my loop. Put my needle in, twist, and pull